1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la. Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la.
Good morning, guys.
Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la. Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la.
Hey, I'm James Hake. This is the Hake Report, 9 a.m. Pacific Time, Monday, September 16th, 2019. Live in hour 4 of Jesse Lee Peterson's stream. Shout out to YouTube, Periscope, DLive, and Mixer.com/JLP Talk. Also live audio via JLPTalk.com. Go to JLPTalk.com, click listen, and you can find the ways to listen live. Actually, you can listen through that page. They are attacking the Border Patrol, and they're doing it like crazy, and they're doing it because Trump is in office and leaning heavily on the Border Patrol to enforce the border, and they don't want that. And I'm saying they, meaning the media, including the New York Times, because they did the hit piece on the Border Patrol, pretending to be a compassionate piece, right? Talking about morale of the Border Patrol is down. Talking about, oh, there's corruption and, oh, their attitude towards these poor migrants is different. It's so bad. But they're trying to hurt the morale. They're trying to turn them against the president, trying to turn us against them and the president, and all kinds of madness. I know that most of you guys are not going to fall for it, but it's just kind of an interesting hit piece by the New York Times, reported from Drudge, about the morale being bad. And they're having a crisis in mission, too. Right? They're using like several angles. I guess most, or at least many, of the Border Patrol agents are Hispanic Spanish speakers, right? Because most of the people crossing the border are Spanish speakers. But also there's Africans who don't, some of them speak French. But the many border agents don't speak French. Some of these African countries speak French, right? And so there's this Uncle Tom effect, Hispanic Uncle Tom, right? Whatever you call it, backstabber or something like that. Most of these Border Patrol agents, arresting Hispanics, and they play that up because they're shallow. They're not for what's right. They're for putting your identity above what's right. They being the liberals, the Democrats, the activists, the illegals and illegal supporters amongst the common people, meaning the citizens and non-citizens, the immigrants and illegal aliens. They're called, there's a whole lot of turncoats amongst the Border Patrol too, a few of them anyways. They will quit, former Border Patrol agents quitting, talking about, oh, I'm putting nonviolent offenders in cages. Cages is a liberal word for what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to put them away where you're supposed to corral them because they're border crossers. They're illegals, which you're bound to find some liberals and rhinos amongst the army or the law enforcement, which is what these people are. And they went from enforcing, catching drug dealers and stuff and drug traffickers to like doing humanitarian stuff because they're overwhelming the system, the commies, the anti-Americans, the ACLU, the liberal judges who are preventing law enforcement from doing their job at the border, the liberal government, the Democrats, the rhinos, everybody basically except for Trump and the decent people that want to enforce our laws and to save the country from the invaders. Because the invaders are going to turn out to be socialist voters, anti-American voters. And there's bound also to be so-called bad actors, right? Amongst 20,000 Border Patrol agents. So you find this Facebook group where they said so-called sexist things about AOC and all those, the liberal government women who visited the Border Patrol agencies to look at the, to gather some sob stories from the illegals who come in here and, they play up their sob stories about, oh, how I was treated. I had to drink water out of the toilet. not even true, and stuff like that. So they're attacking majorly. And then you'll also find this anti-male effect, because this Facebook group, they're calling it sexist, right? Because they made fun of like these women, and and men also aren't very emotional, so they'll talk about floaters, meaning illegals who drown and then they end up just floating. And they talked about that that father with the 3-year-old daughter, whatever, that had supposedly drowned. We don't even know if that photograph is real, right? There was this photograph of a father and his daughter, or a man and a girl, who had supposedly drowned, and they were photographed at the bank of a river. And one of them is like, have you ever seen a floater that looks like this? Because they looked kind of clean. They didn't look all bloated or anything like that. They just looked kind of clean. Maybe they posed for the picture, was what one border agent thought. You're bound to have a little bit of, speculation. Is this real? Jesse Lee Peterson wasn't even sure that it was a real photograph, right? We don't have any context. And the reporters are activists. The photographers, too, are activists. They're liberals. And so we don't know what the truth is. But that's how men think. They're incredulous about incidents like that. They don't become all emotional. Oh, we need to let these people in and give them citizenship. But there's all these accusations of being heartless or whatever. And Trump, too, the anti-Trump thing. This is all really an anti-Trump thing. They're trying to divide and conquer the good government and corrupt them into becoming bad. Like the black Trump supporters, they come under extra scrutiny because I don't know, it's crazy. There's this one black Trump supporting pastor who is pretty prominent. And so, of course, the liberal media does some digging into him and tries to do a hit piece on him. Catches him, overplaying up his accomplishments and stuff like that. And basically embarrass him publicly. But they don't do that same thing with all the liberals. All the liberal blacks are pawns. They're just a bunch of pawns. They don't think for themselves. And they are bigger liars than anybody. But they don't go after those people because those are useful pawns for the liberals. So anyways, it's just a whole bunch of mess. And they're playing up the victim thing. It's just like the Black Lives Matter versus the police. The Border Patrol agents versus the illegals. And they don't even want to call them illegals. They're calling them migrants. They should just call them aliens, since some of them haven't crossed the border yet, so I guess they're not illegals yet. Maybe they're illegals in Mexico, though. Who knows? But Mexico has been very lenient, but because of Trump pushing and forcing, and threatening tariffs, by the way, they have a remain in Mexico policy now. So thank God for that. And it's nice that the Supreme Court, too, has at least somewhat let us reject these fake refugees because they're pretending to be refugees, but they're not pleading for refugee status anywhere else that they cross. We have people coming from Africa, Asia, and other places through Mexico to us. We don't need that. They don't need to be coming here. What a mess. I want to touch on the opioid crisis and the union workers, so-called workers, and teachers' unions striking or threatening strikes too. Bunch of victim stuff. I don't really know the whole deal, but I don't buy this. What the media has been telling us about this stuff. Opioid crisis. Yeah, I'm sure those pharmaceutical companies are very corrupt, and they are pushing drugs, but you have to blame the people too. It's kind of like the people that blame the Jews for pushing the pornography and the opioid crisis or whatever. I had one caller last week who focused on that. But you have to blame the pawns, the useful idiots themselves. If the useful idiots weren't such useful and idiotic, then they wouldn't fall for that stuff. But they are, because the people are corrupt. It's kind of like the blacks blaming the CIA for pushing crack into the black community. Who knows if that's real, right? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But you have to blame the blacks for taking the crack. And the murder rate went through the roof. Nobody forced them to murder each other. I don't think so, anyway. So that's just my little rant. Let me go to Troy out of Baltimore, Maryland. First-time caller. Troy, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing, Hake?
Doing fine, thank you. Nice to hear from you.
Yeah, it's good to hear from you, too. I'd just like to say first, I am a huge fan of you and Jesse Peterson, and I commend everything that you guys are doing because you guys are revealing the truth, and that's what's needed to bring peace to this world today.
Cool, man. Thank you.
Yeah. And I just had one question for you.
Yes.
My question is concerning T.I., the rapper.
T.I., let me go on a little quick rant. T.I. is so lame and dumb.
Yes.
It's so embarrassing.
Yes.
He's pathetic. I saw a little Instagram thing. I don't usually go on Instagram. I should more, to be honest. Just promote my little business thing. But this guy, he was complaining about, we don't want blacks going to white schools because they're just going to teach you what white supremacy or something like that. What's going to benefit them? They're not going to teach you what's going to benefit us. And he's such an idiot. It's like shocking. And he's from the South. He should know better. And I think he's been to prison, but came out.
Yeah, he has a few times.
Yeah, so he's not. And then he attacked Kanye West for supporting Trump. And Kanye West is no angel, but he's right to support Trump. He's like right to support Trump. Kanye has a little bit of his own mind, somewhat. And you would think that T.I. would too, but he doesn't. There was one rap song that I liked back in 2008. But it turned out that he's disappointing just like all the other fake, the artists. Artists tend to be liberals. Anyways, what did you want to...
All of them are.
Yeah. It's a shame. What did you want to say about him, though?
About the T.I. thing, I just thought it was, crazy how he tried to, make a point. First of all, on a young, high school student. I'm not even sure if it was a college student.
Wow.
And, and it was crazy to me because of the fact is, this kid doesn't have, the proper knowledge of the government, the system, and Trump as a human being himself.
Yeah.
I believe she has some great points, but she didn't know how to take him on. I said if he would have took on someone who had more knowledge, I guarantee none of that would have went the way it went.
Yeah.
When he was confronting that little girl.
Yeah, and that's why people become intellectuals, so they can back you up on your heels, because you don't really know that much, and they know a whole lot. They have a whole lot of facts, but they push lies with their facts. And so it's really a deception, because he's basically making elaborate excuses for black failure, which is a shame.
Right.
And
I agree.
Yeah.
And one thing I have heard so many times, which is so true, is the fact of how worse the black Americans have become. At one point in time, it was nowhere near the killing rate it is.
Yeah.
As far as black-on-black crime.
Right.
In the history.
You know
what I mean?
It's just been spiking ever since basically the out-of-wedlock birth started really going out of control. And that's not the only, I don't know what all is going on, but it's basically they're abandoning morals. And they want to...
I agree.
Yeah, it's crazy. They should bring in the National Guard into Chicago, but people like Louis Farrakhan acts like that's an attack on the black community to bring in the National Guard to stop the killing.
Right.
So dumb.
I can't even get, I don't even get Louis Farrakhan. I never even been. I listen to some of this guy's stuff, but this guy is just preaching nothing but hatred.
Yeah.
I believe we're all equal, man. I'm a black American myself. But I don't see color, man. I love everybody. I don't see color. So, I guess I don't know how what it's going to take for people to wake up. I know a lot of them are under control of the enemy.
Yeah.
But, it's just sad to watch,
Yep. I appreciate it, Troy.
Yep, no problem.
All right, take care.
All right, you as well.
It's a shame because they're pushing, I don't know, they're acting like there's a moral equivalence between the liberals and the conservatives. And if we just came together, then we could work out the issues. But it doesn't work like that. You just push what's right and push out what's wrong. That's what Trump does, and that's nice. Because they call him divisive, because he won't join forces with he will join forces with those who are willing to work with him. And that can be dicey, right? Because we've seen him bring total rhinos into his cabinet. I believe Bolton had said some nasty things about Trump before Trump even brought him in. So, and then we saw then an Oval Office woman recently fired she's not just an Oval Office woman. She was like the gatekeeper. She worked at the Oval Office desk that filtered who gets to see President Trump or talk to him. Her name was, I forget what, but she was just like a 20-something-year-old woman, had married, I think, white woman, I think, worked with Mitt Romney's campaign, I believe, and she cried, supposedly, reportedly, according to the New York Times story about her. New York Times never lies, right? I'm laughing. Cried when Trump won because she wanted somebody else to win. And I think it was I hope that it was not election night that she cried, but hopefully at least it would have been maybe the primary night. But I think it might have been the election night, which is shocking if that's true. I'll have to go back and check on that, because why would you, if you're a real Republican, even a rhino Republican, why would you cry election night? I'm going to have to check in on that. But Trump was leery of having her work under him, but John Kelly, who's supposed to be a tough guy, he left the office. He was like sick. He was dealing with the staff or something like chief of staff or something like that for the White House. John Kelly was a former general or something like that. But John Kelly was trying to get her to work with the Trump administration and become like helpful in making things run smoothly. But she ended up leaking to the press about the Trump family and about, other things, other private matters, other classified information, basically. And so when she leaked that to reporters, when she met with them privately at a dinner or something, Trump caught wind of it and she was gone immediately. But there's a whole lot of rhinos that join forces with Trump. And then there's, some liberals who try to pretend to work with Trump. But they're not, I don't trust any of those people. And it's a good thing that Trump kind of has his own mind and a sense about people. And he really listens, so he knows where people are coming from, I think. So he doesn't necessarily go along with them. John Bolton was on the outs with Trump for a while before he finally either quit or was fired, was asked to resign or resigned himself willingly. But it was a mess. It was shameful. So, before I get to calls, hang on, guys. This opioid crisis, they're making the OD'ers, overdosers, out to be victims, and I don't like that. Basically, they're turning the whites into wannabe victims, because a lot of whites are ODing on opioids. And others, but whites really disproportionately, even for, we're 60% of the population, right? We used to be much more, right? But we're overrepresented. I think we're like 70 or 80%. I could be wrong, of the people ODing. Well, I'm not ODing on opioids. But it's evil people calling out evil. And Drudge reports that this OxyContin maker, which is a painkiller, Purdue Pharma files for bankruptcy as part of a deal to get people more money so that they can't be sued out of their money by other entities. It's just a big ploy for money and for making people feel sorry for themselves and other people that they shouldn't be feeling sorry for. If somebody ODs on drugs or commits suicide, you shouldn't be feeling sorry for them. That's wrong for them to be taking that many drugs or much drugs. Many. But, yeah, I don't like this stuff. They're pushing victimhood and blaming the so-called powerful people. And yeah, the powerful people are evil much of the time, let's say. But so are the pawns. So same thing with these auto workers and teachers unions. I don't like that. They're like victim-minded socialist commies. I'm pretty sure the Chicago school district that pays the teachers are pretty corrupt, and maybe GM is. Did GM, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't really know for sure. I know that some American automakers got bailed out in the so-called financial crisis that we supposedly had in 2007, 2008. Did GM get money from that too? I'm not sure. But I don't like the unions for being in bed with the government, and I don't like the car companies or the education system being in bed with the government, getting funding when they don't deserve it, and all kinds of mess. So I feel that I've known some union people, people who work in unions, and I still know some who work for the unions, right? They get higher wages. It's nice. It's pretty nice. Cushy, I would almost say. I would say, actually, in some cases. They get union breaks, union wages, which are high above the industry standard, I would say. It's supposed to be the industry standard, but it's not according to, like, market value. They should get rid of minimum wage so that, retirees can go work jobs for $2 an hour or whatever. Have a sense of extra meaning, and it's basically a right to contract. You should have the right to make whatever contract you want, to work for however little or much you want to work for. It shouldn't be forced by law, because that only subsidizes people, and subsidizing people raises the cost of living because you can afford more, so they're going to charge more. It's just like subsidized housing raises housing prices because you already have a floor. A built-in floor. The floor should be zero, not whatever. And so it's a mess. Like rent control messes up people, messes up everybody. So anyways, let me get to Joe out of Phoenix, Arizona. Joe, long time no hear. How are you doing?
Doing good, James. How are you?
Doing fine.
Yeah,
How are you?
I was gone for a while.
Good.
I had a health scare, but I'm back now.
All right. Well, glad you're back.
Yeah. I kind of agree with you on the opioid crisis, but Purdue Pharma did downplay the addiction risks, and they pushed doctors to increase dosages.
All right.
So they should be held liable for that.
I'm willing to believe that. You know, these doctors too. What about these doctors? Like doctors.
They should be held liable too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a mess. Everywhere it's corrupt. But they tend to only target the so-called powerful. But they don't they need to bring back shame on people taking the drugs and people feeling suicidal. It should be stigmatized. But they want to destigmatize it so that they can exploit them further, I think.
I hate to say it, but I agree with you. Just because drugs are available doesn't mean that you should take them.
Yeah. Man, it's nice to hear from you. You sound weaker than you used to sound. I hope that you're continuing to get better, man.
Yeah, it's going to take a while, but I'll get there.
Cool. Wow.
And basically, I had a stroke, so.
Wow. Yeah. That's rough, man.
Yeah, it was. Almost died, but I'm good now.
Yeah. Stay healing up. Stay with the what they call it, the physical therapy stuff.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
But just a quick shout out to Brandon Johnson in the chat. He didn't think it was me. I really am back, Brandon.
Right on, man.
And as far as Trump goes, don't worry, because as long as the economy stays good, he's going to be good. He'll get reelected.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to scaremonger about the economy. And to be honest, between you and me and everybody listening, I halfway believe that there is, the economy is in danger, because I think that, with all this printing money and stuff like that, and just in general, I feel that it is not, it's for years now been kind of iffy, because we're so indebted to so many people. And
the Fed is not printing money, but they're still pumping a lot of money into the economy. They're still buying a whole lot of government bonds.
Yeah.
They're still buying up a lot of the collateralized debt on Wall Street to stabilize Wall Street.
Yeah.
So they're still pumping billions per month into the economy. So the economy is not standing on its own 2 feet yet.
Yep. It's not good. I don't like the way that they're manipulating stuff. I don't trust the people in charge. I mean,
I've been saying it for years. It's far more important who's leading the Fed than who's in the White House. It really is in terms of the economy.
Wow.
Most folks have no clue how the Fed operates or what they even do. You know.
To be honest, neither position should be that important, and the Fed I don't really like or trust. But even like the presidency and all of that, I don't think that any of those. I heard back in the day that the presidency didn't used to be as powerful as it is. And I think that maybe part of that is the foreign policy thing. I heard from one independent journalist who's liberal, but I still value his opinion somewhat, that the Congress basically surrendered its foreign policy power to the executive branch, which I don't think is wise.
Yeah.
I don't like Congress either. I mean, I just basically, in general, all the people are so corrupt that you're not going to get good leadership. You're going to get the worst because we tend to elect the worst of the worst, except in the case of Trump. We selected the best of the best in that case, kind of.
Well, we disagree there, but in general, we agree, yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, I hope
Washington is very, very corrupt.
Say that again? Washington
in general.
Yep.
Is very, very corrupt, yeah.
Well, I hope you continue to get well. It's nice to hear from you, man.
I'll be fine, buddy. Thank you.
All right. Take care, Joe.
Take care now. Bye.
Bye. Yeah. So, listen about these auto workers and teachers unions pushing the strikes. So, there were some auto workers that did go to work. According to Drudge and also the Free Press, Detroit Free Press, I think this took place in Flint. In an emotional scene Sunday morning, I guess they started their strike Saturday just before midnight. I said Sunday just before midnight. It's all confusing. I don't know or care that much. But United Auto Workers passed picketing janitors, represented by the same union just hours after the maintenance workers, went on strike in an escalation of already tense contract talks. So even the janitors are striking. United Auto Workers Union. This isn't what solidarity looks like, one auto worker said as he dropped off food to the janitors before reporting for his shift, which started just before 7 a.m. The auto workers are General Motors employees, and the UAW told them to report to work Sunday even though the union's contract with GM expired at 11:59 p.m. Saturday night. The union's leadership was to meet at 10 a.m. Sunday in Detroit to decide on next steps. The janitors, who have worked without a contract since May 2018, hey, they're still getting paid. Why do you need a contract? But they said that they're getting $15 to $16 an hour. That sounds like plenty to me as a janitor. Seems like okay. The UAW, in announcing the strike shortly after midnight, said the janitors' key issues involve wages, caps on health insurance, vacation time, and 401k plans. Meanwhile, like small business people, they work like 60, 70, 80 hours a week to make their business go. And so they're not working that many hours. They have time to work on other stuff. It just seems like more victim stuff, which I do not trust. And by the way, speaking of victims, Kavanaugh got accused yet again this weekend. I'll tell you about that in a second, but let me get to some more calls. Kavanaugh. I saw this thing trending on Twitter. I ignored it. And so I asked on Sunday on my channels, what's up with Kavanaugh? I heard that hashtag Kavanaugh lied was trending on Twitter and hashtag impeach Kavanaugh was trending. I'm like, okay, liberal Twitter is at it again. I'm just going to ignore this. Turns out I was right to ignore it, but I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Alexis out of New Jersey, first-time caller. Alexis, how are you?
The Hake report, the Hake report, la, la, la.
Hey, right on, man.
How you doing?
Doing fine, thank you.
It's my first time calling.
Right on.
I hope Earl don't call today.
You hope he doesn't call? He called Jesse,
Yeah,
so
please.
we got enough of Earl for one day.
Yeah, he played a fool today. Like,
Yeah. He called Jesse a clown, which is laughable.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what kind of med is he on. I'm trying to figure it out, but I just seem not to understand what kind of med.
On a
He gotta
serious
be on
note,
some serious stuff,
it is a shame that somebody that old can be that dumb. It is a shame.
And his age, he sounds pretty old.
Yeah.
I'm only 29, and damn, I'm sorry about that, but I'm more rational than that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, people are either blind or they're not. I mean, some of us are like still kind of halfway blind.
You also have a lady who calls you, though.
Maze?
Yeah, I can't understand Jack. She's saying.
Yeah.
I've been trying to figure it out. What's that?
Sometimes.
Can you tell her to slow down so I can understand her?
Yeah, I have to listen very closely, and I can usually understand her words better than Jesse can. So that's cool.
I got the YouTube. I got the YouTube that I could hit back, so I always have to hit back.
Right.
Fast forward and back forward because I don't understand why she got touched so fast.
Yeah, I used to have a promo where she would say, "It's time for some brain power," and it would say it on my. I had it on subtitle, right? So it said it's time for some brain power. But one of my listeners, he only listens, he doesn't watch, so he doesn't know what she's saying with that. It's time for some brain power, but she said it like so fast, so they don't understand.
She's funny. She's funny. I have fun when she on up. Well,
yeah.
I was calling to talk about the Democrat debates, which I try to watch a little about it, but it's so boring.
Yes.
I'm not going to lie to you. It's pretty boring.
Yeah.
It's more pandering than anything else. And
yeah.
I don't know. I don't like pandering. I really,
me neither.
I don't even know what to call it because it is kind of annoying.
Totally.
And, when you see that, even now that the new one came up, and the first thing I saw is this Spanish anchor who I cannot stand. And I'm sorry. I tried to be, friendly towards everybody, not to dislike people, but I can't stand this guy. I'm Spanish, and I come from a Spanish country, but I love America.
Yeah.
I'm 100% American, and I don't like what he does. The first thing he did, we speak Spanish here. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to change my country to speak Spanish? I don't want my country to speak Spanish.
Right.
My country's an English-speaking country.
Yep.
What are these people doing? And that reminds me of the same thing they're trying to do over at the Dominican Republic with the Haitians. They're trying to take over, and the Dominicans are not doing anything about it. And it's funny because it's the same thing here. Americans ain't doing nothing about it. Why would we allow these people to come in and say, like, so proudly say, this is America, and we speak Spanish here? Who cares? We don't speak Spanish here. We speak English.
Yeah.
Why are you trying to change us?
It was a shame watching those Democrats, so many of the Democrats, say stuff in Spanish.
Trump had a few words for him, though.
Yeah.
Jorge. On the debate. Jorge Ramos. I can't stand that guy, man. I can't, man. It's like every time I see him, I'll be like, yo, unbelievable with this guy.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I wanted to ask you something.
Yes.
I've been having this question in the back of my head for a while. You know, how they used to talk to us about Jesus Christ, and they always talked about, they had this on the movie that when they were looking for Jesus Christ, he turned into like one of these bays.
Say that again?
And every time I've seen that, I used to, kind of think that was false. And I don't know. It always made me feel like that wasn't right.
When you're watching, when you're watching a movie about Jesus, they turn him into what?
Yeah, do you remember that movie they used to play all the time by like Christmas time?
Yeah. And what do they?
It was the whole movie of him coming up as a baby,
right?
And how they were following him to kill him when he was a baby, and then they were trying to find him. And when they almost found him, he turned into a vase.
A vase?
I don't know. Every time I see, like one of those things that you put flowers in.
Yeah. So basically, the notion is that God messed with their eyes so that they didn't find him, or something.
Yeah, but I don't know. That seems fake to me. I don't.
Yeah, I don't think.
God would ever do that.
I don't think that's even in the Bible, right? I think that was made up.
I don't know. So many things are deceiving, and I don't know. That's why some people don't believe in any of those pictures. Because if you look at it, even people from church,
right,
they tend to lie to you. They tell you, "Oh, the end is coming."
Yeah.
What end? What are you talking about? God said it in the Bible. He would never destroy Earth. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Or when they tell you, I'm a Christian, but you ain't even married.
Yeah.
You're living with your girlfriend, but you ain't married. You have kids, but you ain't married. What kind of Christian is you? You know what I mean?
It's the one that bought the lie it's the kind that bought the lie that I'm not perfect. And so they have this false humility where they say, "Oh, I'm not perfect."
That's the main one. They always come up with that perfect. And I always tell them in the Bible, it says, "Be perfect as God in heaven is perfect."
Yeah.
So what are you talking about? It's like, I don't know what they come up with. But, yeah, I always wanted to share that with you. I called previously about that, but I always call late. So that was my
I appreciate that, Alexis.
I wanted to say that.
Thanks, man.
Have a good one, man. Enjoy your day.
All right, you too. Take care.
God bless.
You as well. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this. Carl from D Live, call Jesse again. Call him tomorrow, whatever. He got confused and thought you were singing the Hake Report song. The Hake Report. Even though you were obviously singing Stand Up because you were singing that line, Find a Way. I think it happened in the first hour or so. So he was black. So you can call again. By the way, Women's Forum, speaking of becoming perfect, ladies, third Thursday of the month, 7 p.m. at Bond in Los Angeles. I'm touting it because I support the men's forums. I go to the men's forums. They're like my favorite meetings of the month, every month. I really like the church services too, but I really enjoy the men's forums. They're always excellent. And so I presume, making a prayer out of you and me, I presume that the women's forums are excellent as well. And I always hear that they are. So make sure you join the women's forums in person only. They are not streamed, not recorded, not broadcast. What happens in there stays private so that you don't be hearing gossip about other people. So that's nice. Do it. Let me tell you a little bit about this story from Kavanaugh. So Kavanaugh, Justice Kavanaugh, you'll notice that the liberals even attack the so-called moderates. And this guy seems kind of moderate, a little bit rhino, a little bit soft, or maybe a lot of it soft. Kisses up to the women. I think that he hired all women staff, like for his clerks, law clerks. And Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the pro-abortion 100-year-old woman that has had multiple health scares, should retire, should just let Trump nominate another conservative justice instead of her. But she even praised Justice Brett Kavanaugh for that. He made 2 daughters. To Jesse's point about real men make boys first. So he was accused in this New York Times article by 2, I think they're New York Times writers, that got together, females, wrote this book that's coming out tomorrow. Don't read it. It's lame. But this more fair-minded reporter, Molly Hemingway, I forget where she's from, what outlet she's from, but she's on Twitter. This Molly Hemingway woman never fell for the fake Russia thing, stupid conspiracy theory against Trump, trying to stop Trump from becoming president or staying president, trying to undermine his work as president. So she pointed out that this article about their book that's coming out, promoting it, ignored the fact up until late Sunday night that the supposed incident that Kavanaugh, the supposed second incident that involving Kavanaugh, supposedly, the woman that was supposedly the victim doesn't even recall the incident. And in fact, there's another similar incident by that woman, Deborah Ramirez, who she claims there was an incident. It's just a disgusting, like, exposing oneself type of incident, right? They accuse Kavanaugh of doing that at a drunken party, dorm party, where there's no evidence of it, no witnesses to it. The witnesses that were there with Debbie, supposedly, she called them and none of them remember it. And then she's not even sure she remembered it, except after several days of racking her memory and consulting with a lawyer, basically covering herself. And as a woman, if you make an accusation, you're covered. Can be a false accusation, you're still covered. If you do it in a certain way, you consult with your lawyer. So it's a mess. And the people, it's basically this fake pro-woman thing. So, and actually, whites are under attack. Here's another story. Dumb whites going to college, shouldn't be going to college. Dumb POCs going to college, shouldn't be going to college. But whites need not apply. This is from Drudge. Campus Sci-Tech, Science Technology, Symposium to only feature scholars of color. We hear about this stuff all the time. It's kind of boring when you hear about it. But it's just one more example. The College Fix reports an upcoming Science and Technology Symposium slated to take place at Williams College promises a unique feature. It will showcase new voices in the field, and those voices will only come from scholars of color. Quote, New Voices in Science Technology Studies, a C3 symposium, set for early November at the private Massachusetts-based liberal arts university. So it's a private college. Don't even send them to private schools anymore, because they're all corrupt too. Invited scholars to submit papers if they represent a historically underrepresented group. The call for papers specifies that means either African Americans, Alaska Natives, Arab Americans, Asian Americans, Latinx, Native Americans, Native Hawaiians, and other Pacific Islanders. Part of the application process asked applicants to write a couple sentences, not a couple pages, proving themselves as a member of a historically underrepresented group. Yet the application also provides an equal employment opportunity statement that people from all backgrounds are welcome. Chosen scholars will receive $500 honorarium and be hosted by Williams College as they present their papers to the audience. Organizers state, adding, quote, we aim to create an inclusive, except for not whites, intellectually enriching, probably not, experience for all involved, including the visiting speakers and the faculty and students of Williams. So that's a private school. I went to a private school too after I went to Pasadena City College, which is a junior college, which is a community college. That means it's a government-funded 2-year school where you can get an associate's degree, AA or AS. I got an associate's in arts and associate's in science from Pasadena City College. Because I went to school, I was forced to go to school, right? I'm like, you're not going to military, you're going to school. Freshman year of high school, because you write what you want to do after you graduate. Like you even know. Most people don't know, so I didn't have any idea. And so I wrote, military. My friend and I both did, and then our mothers forced us to change it. My parents actually forced me to change it to college. And so since then, I was like, okay, I'm going to college. And so I wanted to go to college just to run by the end of senior year. I had gotten into cross country. I was forced to run before that, and then I started running, and I had all my teammates, and we got all excited together to run. And so I was dissatisfied with my running career in high school, so I went to college just because I wanted to run. But I was an okay student. I was, smart, somewhat. Academically, I would say. So I went to Pasadena City College, and then I transferred to Azusa Pacific because I was living at home. It's a 20-minute commute, right? And so I went to Azusa Pacific University, and that's a private Christian school. and I learned a bunch of like basically liberal stuff. It's much like what you heard and saw with this suicidal Christian pastor who felt sorry for the illegal aliens because aliens sounds like such a terrible thing to say, and apologized to the POCs, the people of color, on behalf of Jesus in the Bible, because racism is not condoned in the Bible. When he saw some report about a KKK protest, or that woman from Maryland, the city council member who wanted to keep her community white, or if a black couple, both of them black, want to move in, that's okay. But we don't want mixed race. Somehow she thinks that it's a corrupting influence. Maybe she's right, I don't know. But yeah. So this guy's like apologizing to the POCs about that. People get, so same thing, same atmosphere as what I was in at APU, where they just, Azusa Pacific University, Christian so-called school, where they just kiss up to the blacks. And oh my gosh, we were forced to go to chapel, and chapel is where they have singing 3 times a week, and like a little, person giving a little sermon or talk about whatever Christian so-called stuff. And sometimes they would have these like gospel choir type things going on. And oh my gosh, that was the most miserable stuff because it was so repetitive. I never got into the gospel music stuff. When I say gospel music, I don't mean Christian music, because there's like Christian rock and stuff like that I kind of liked growing up. I grew up with it. But I'm talking about that stuff where they, and then like they do that call and response and endlessly repetitive gospel stuff, black church type stuff. I did not like that. But you would see the whites getting into it, and it's just, blech. And they were also kissing up. There was like a faction, a growing and growing and growing faction in this Christian school that was accepting LGBTQ stuff. And so this is very corrupt stuff. And they fall for the racism thing, just very politically correct. And actually, the president, his wife and daughter ran this pro-woman thing. And by pro-woman, I mean basically feminist thing. Feminist light about basically pushing women as leaders. And when I first started on the Jesse Lee Peterson show, I started to like invite these people on. But they soon said, don't invite us on ever again, because I would invite some writer or other. One like male feminist on, supposedly Christian. And, Jesse just bees Jesse. Just stays Jesse, speaking his mind. And that comes off as too harsh, too not very compassionate, because they have this false love that they're pushing. And so when you have somebody who's a man just speaking his mind, that comes off as too harsh. It's just like those so-called Christians that apologize for Trump because Trump just speaks his mind, because he's not falling for the fake political correctness stuff. And so that's what this thing is. That's private schools, I think, are just as bad as the public ones, because they're all like intellectuals, and intellectuals nowadays are not intelligent. They're not clear thinking. They can't really see the big picture. They fall for the liberal stuff. It's a shame. By the way, update on the matching donor thing. Just to keep you guys up to date. As you know, Bond is moving. Gonna have to move. The landlord, falling for the globalist thing, building apartments, and including in that is Section 8, so he's getting government kickback from that, I'm sure. They're doing it all over the city. And they're doing it all over, really. Causing a mess. Trying to corral the people. So we have this anonymous matching donor for up to $50,000 for the rest of September. We're currently, last I saw, up to $22K. So thank you, guys. You can check the thermometer of where we are on rebuildingtheman.com. Scroll down just a little bit. You'll see it. And you can also see it on JesseLeePeterson.com. If you want to do it through the GoFundMe, you can go thebond.fund, and that'll redirect, shout out to Bubs Love, to the GoFundMe page. And it's cool. You can see that, but that's only just one aspect of the funds that we're raising, because we're also raising it off-site, off of the GoFundMe site. So it's really nice. You know, all these entertainers, like Kanye West, T.I., the rapper, Elton John, the gay guy who sings Circle of Life. That's all like the young people I know him for. Was he sang The Lion King? Elton John is a homosexual singer. He's been around forever. But supposedly he has a recurring role in the Trump presidency, even though he turned down the inauguration gig. You remember that when Trump won office, and then all these entertainers were like, "No, I don't want to perform for President Trump. He's so racist," or whatever. But Elton John, despite turning that down, has a recurring role, according to this. He's Sir Elton John. He's English and gay. He said, "Thank you so much for the extremely kind invitation to play at your inauguration," wrote one of President Trump's favorite musicians, Sir Elton John. "I have given it a lot of thought, and as a British national, I don't feel that it's appropriate for me to play at the inauguration of an American president. Please accept my apologies." I wonder if he's making a PR stunt. Not a PR stunt, but a PR calculation not to perform there. So Mr. Trump had been hoping that he would croon him into the presidency. And he had been struggling to find notable musicians. This is from MSN, which is reporting from the New York Times. He had been struggling to find notable musicians to perform at the coming festivities, often considered a high honor, because everybody was excited to perform for the first black president, which they should have been ashamed to do it. Aretha Franklin performed at Barack's, President Obama's. Beyonce did too. And you know how corrupt those people are, or were. Aretha Franklin recently died, in the past year or two. And all the blacks, including Al Sharpton, I can still hear his voice ringing in my ears saying, "Rethra." He called her Retha. Like, you singing in heaven, something stupid. Just like the whites saying that the suicidal pastor was in heaven now. Just lying. And Beyonce, as Jesse calls her, supports Black Lives Matter. Jay-Z is her husband. They have this Netflix deal where they're promoting lies. They promoted this Trayvon Martin fake documentary, not telling the whole truth about what really happened. If they did, then they would show that they care about blacks, but they didn't. They don't. And Jesse Lee Peterson's book, The Antidote, tells the real truth about it, about Trayvon Martin's story, about his messed up family and all that, and how he likely was the one to throw the first punch, according to his girlfriend. Well, he's dead now, so she's not his girlfriend anymore. But Trump had considered Elton John somewhat of a friend. And he joined other celebrities in declining the opportunity to perform. They'll perform for the black woman, but not the white one. Well, I don't think that Elton John performed for Obama, but he is kind of a liberal. So Trump had praised John Belton's talent and drive. In 2005, way before he became president, Trump had arranged for Elton John to perform at his third wedding to Melania Knauss. So, isn't that nice? 11 years later, Elton John sent his carefully worded email passing on an encore performance. Tiny Dancer was one of Elton John's well-known songs. Still rings out, though, at President Trump's campaign rallies. One that Trump personally selects. So isn't that nice? And also, I noticed that Trump always, after he talks, plays that Rolling Stones song by, what is it called? It starts with this choir singing, "You Can't Always Get What You Want." And I noticed that the Rolling Stones guy also bashed Trump because these people, and these are old timers that should know better, right? Whites they know that whites are under attack if they're paying attention at all. That guy, I'm blanking on that Rolling Stones guy's name, Mick Jagger. He was kissing up to I told you guys about this last week. He was totally kissing up to the environmentalists who protested at a red carpet thing for his movie, because he appeared in some documentary or movie or something. And he totally kissed up to them, saying, "Oh, I praise these people, and we need, Trump shouldn't have backed out of the Paris Climate Accord," and all this madness. They don't really care about the environment. It's fake. The environment is doing better than ever, at least under Trump in America, maybe not in China, than ever. I remember when I was growing up in LA, and Kamala Harris made this point. When I was growing up, we would get smogged majorly. Like, if we went out before 3 p.m. During the day and played basketball or whatever, you breathe hard, and then you breathe in afterwards, you go, dude, you would be coughing. You would be messed up. And that was because of major smog. But that has gone down majorly. Kamala Harris tried to take credit for that because she was AG, Attorney General, and she has been, influential in California, probably to our detriment. But stuff has gotten better. And actually, my mother tells me that it was even worse when she was a kid, the smog. So stuff has only really gotten better. And that's not necessarily just because of the government cracking down. People make stuff better. People make improvements. And it's just like this vape thing. They don't know what the truth is about this vaping stuff, how it really affects people. And so there's a lot of speculation. Trump wants to ban it to protect the kids or whatever. But they don't really know what's going on because it's a new technology. Same thing with all this 5G stuff. 5G supposedly is something I think that Trump is pushing because it's like an advanced technology, right? But we don't really know what's going on with it. So people have to really be careful. Listen a little bit to the conspiracy theorists because some of the stuff that they say is right, but also, have your own mind about it too. Because you can't just buy stuff that they say because they do sometimes make stuff up. But anyways, it's kind of nice that Trump, by the way, Trump also tributes to Elton John by calling Kim Jong-un, well, he doesn't call him in this anymore, Little Rocket Man, because of Elton John's Rocket Man song. It's kind of nice. Trump is like a classy guy. He doesn't hold stuff against people once they stop holding stuff against him. He's very nice even to like Mitt Romney and them, which a lot of you guys don't trust. But I think Trump is trustworthy. They're not. That's what it seems like to me. Maybe I'll end up being wrong. We'll find out. Anyways, guys, so you can check out my podcast, thehakereport.com/podcast, by the way, because the recordings go up there and also on my channels. I'll see you guys later. Appreciate it. And make sure that you subscribe to the Bond Rebuilding the Man YouTube channel because it is excellent. We had a really cool church service yesterday about that pastor guy that committed suicide, if you didn't catch it. All right, guys, take care.